Welcome to day 3 of our series. Let's just jump right into this explainer. If you work in environmental consulting, you already know that absolute sinking feeling of having a massive, hundreds of pages long environmental impact assessment get totally bogged down in regulatory review. It is the worst. So today, we're going to fix that. We're going to learn exactly how to transform a raw, passive data dump into a scientifically rigorous, defensible EIA. We'll be diving into how to apply internal quality management systems and, honestly, how to leverage the incredible power of responsible artificial intelligence to catch and rectify errors long before they ever reach the regulators.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to move logically from identifying the root causes of those painful regulatory rejections all the way through to your final Parivesh submission protocols. All right, let's kick things off by looking at why EIAs actually get rejected in the first place, and how avoiding a few common pitfalls is really our first major step to success. We've got to confront the very real threat of EDS and ADS head-on. To do that, we have to start by asking the single most critical question that plagues EIA practitioners and leads to those massive, frustrating regulatory delays. Why exactly do state and expert appraisal committees, the SEAC and EAC members, reject these reports? I mean, when a committee member opens up a giant EIA document, what is it that causes them to immediately flag it and just halt the entire clearance process?
Well, it turns out, simply compiling a bunch of data without any critical analysis is the fastest possible route to receiving an EDS or ADS. Regulators absolutely hate it when an EIA is treated as just a raw data dump. If your impact assessments are just, well, actually, let's be real, if they're just qualitative statements like, there will be some air pollution, instead of mathematically quantified models, you are going to get flagged for sure. Missing an Appendix 3 compliant executive summary or lacking a structured internal quality management system, those are massive red flags too. The days of simply copy-pasting lab reports and calling it an assessment are well and truly over, guys. So to fix these rejections and really elevate our reports, we need to completely shift our perspective before we even write the first page. We have to adopt the true NABIT assessor mindset. A real assessor doesn't just check boxes for basic compliance. They critically examine the authenticity, the relevance, and the synthesis of the information. There's this great philosophy from Francis Bacon: read to weigh and consider. And that perfectly anchors what we need to do. As EIA practitioners, we have to look far beyond mere statutory compliance. We must ensure that every single piece of data is analyzed with deep professional judgment, not just blindly reproduced. And that leads us perfectly into our next core concept, actually transitioning from passive data collection to active, rigorous scientific reasoning. Think about the stark difference here. A raw data dump that just states, pH is 7.41 and TDS is 850 milligrams per liter means absolutely nothing on its own in a vacuum. What the committee actually demands is rigorous scientific interpretation. We need to take those raw numbers and figure out the so what. We need to assess the ionic balance. We need to compare them against BIS, the Bureau of Indian Standards, drinking water limits. We need to identify hydrogeochemical facies, like determining if the groundwater is primarily of a calcium bicarbonate type, which would actually tell us if it's a freshwater recharge area. That level of rigor, that is exactly what makes your EIA truly defensible.
Now that we know the strict scientific standard required, let's introduce the ultimate tool to help us achieve it with incredible efficiency: responsible artificial intelligence.
But look, before we just start casually typing into a chatbot, we have to understand that AI isn't here to replace the functional area expert, the FAE. Not at all. Instead, it acts as an intelligent assistant. The real game changer here is a concept called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG. This is a framework where we combine AI models with our own external, verified knowledge bases, like your specific EIA draft or the exact regulatory standards. This grounds the AI. It forces it to retrieve actual, relevant evidence from your documents, which drastically minimizes the risk of factual hallucinations, where the AI just confidently makes things up.
And we really need to weigh the pros and cons carefully here. While AI is incredibly capable, it can rapidly map your report against the terms of reference to ensure compliance, it can spot numerical outliers in massive datasets in seconds, draft those tricky Appendix II summaries, or do all those tedious cross-chapter consistency checks, it still carries strict limitations. It lacks true scientific reasoning, and most importantly, there are severe data privacy concerns. You must literally never upload confidential primary field data, unredacted client lab reports, or proprietary info into public AI tools. The human expert is always legally and technically accountable.
All right, so how do we actually talk to these AI tools safely and effectively to get those professional-grade results? Let's get into the actionable playbook.
Creating the perfect AI prompt isn't just about asking a casual question. It requires strict prompt engineering. For EIA professionals, this means following 3 essential steps every single time. Step 1. Assign an expert persona. Tell the AI exactly who it is supposed to be. Step 2. Define the context. Give it the specific project details and the exact regulatory framework it needs to operate within. And Step 3. State the exact deliverable, the required output format, and any constraints. Listen to the difference between a weak prompt and a strong one, and you'll see why vague instructions fail every time. If you use a weak prompt like, "Hey, check this EIA chapter," you're going to get a generic, totally useless response. Instead, use strong, directive verbs and an explicit expert persona. Tell the AI, act as a senior, NABET-accredited EIA reviewer. Review this socioeconomic baseline text. Identify gaps based on NAEP expectations, specifically looking for the absence of statistical analysis or livelihood vulnerability mapping. Boom. Those precise constraints generate highly actionable, scientifically robust critiques that will actually help you improve the report. It's a total night and day difference.
Okay, so we've elevated the science and utilized AI. But finally, we must institutionalize this quality. We're at the final gate, QMS and Parvesh readiness.
We absolutely cannot just rely on individual brilliance here. We need proper internal systems. Within a solid quality management system, or QMS, a report cannot just jump straight to submission. It starts in a draft phase, where the preparer compiles the data, sure, but it must then pass through a mandatory technical review by a functional area expert. Then, and only then, it moves to the approval phase for the EIA coordinator's final sign-off. Only after this strict internal peer review workflow is completed does it ever reach the submission phase for upload to the Parivesh portal.
You need to treat this final checklist as your absolute safeguard. Before you even think about hitting submit on the Parivesh portal, you must verify the TOR compliance matrix. You've got to confirm that all primary and secondary data is validated. Impacts must be mathematically quantified, not just vaguely described. Your lab reports? They must be NABL accredited and actually attached. And this is vital. If you used AI to help draft or review the document, every single word of that AI-generated text must be expertly peer-reviewed by a human. Implementing this checklist guarantees a flawless submission that is going to easily pass regulatory scrutiny.
Ultimately, creating a defensible EIA is all about shifting your mindset. It's moving from mere compliance to rigorous scientific evaluation and giving your teams the right systems and AI tools to execute that vision flawlessly. So what steps will you take today to implement these AI tools and QMS frameworks into your next EIA? Take a moment to really think about that, because it could be a real game changer for your workflow. If you found this explainer valuable, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.